police. That if they're going to be human beings sanctioned by law in this country and in our communities with guns, with the ability to inflict harm on our communities, then they should be controlled by this community. There's a history that we refuse to ignore, and one that we think that all media must be aware of about this relationship that exists between our community and the police. It seems to me that at least there should be some inkling, some intellectual itch on the part of media forces to look into this question of this history of this relationship. There's no history of a relationship. Our relationship is not characterized by harmful things being done by our community, the white people. There's a history of the police doing these things. In fact, the police in this country was formed from slave catchers and from people who were called Texas Rangers, who sometimes started off as being just ordinary white people who were involved in taking this land from Mexicans and the indigenous peoples here. There's a history here. And so the history is not one of African people simply making up lies to tell on the police department. It's just the opposite. And everybody knows that. And so it's important for us to take this up and to demand Black community control of the police. And so the campaign is going to be multifaceted, and we are still in the process of developing, but I can tell you it's going to be unrelenting. And we intend to build an international sentiment and movement around everywhere around the cases of these three girls. And I cannot speak, and don't dare attempt to speak for the families of the other two children who were killed. But I can speak for Dominique Battle and for Sister Yashika here. And part of what we've done is to build this campaign is to bring into this case the General Counsel of the Uhuru Movement, Attorney Aaron O'Neill from the Maryland, Washington, D.C. area, who will be representing the case of Dominique Battle and Yashika Clemens. And that's going to be really important because, again, part of this objective has to be to smash through the wall of odious slander that's perpetually directed at Black people. And when I say Black people, I'm not talking about people on the county commissioner or the president of the United States or anybody like that. I'm talking about ordinary working class African people. Every negative that's directed at Black people is one that is centered in African working class people who are forced to live under the most horrendous conditions that are patrolled and controlled by police throughout this country. And the reality is that the closest association with any form of government that ordinary Black people have is the police department. It was the sheriff department in this city. And the same sheriff department, by the way, that when Goliath Davis was chief of police, when there was a chief of police with a relationship with this community, when he was chief of police, he forced the sheriff department to stay out of St. Petersburg, Florida, because of the notoriety of their cruelty and vicious treatment of African people here. So I want to say that, and I want to just, bring up Sister Yashika, who is the mother of Dominique Battle. And then there's Aaron O'Neill, who is the attorney that is now representing this case, who is also the General Counsel of the Uhuru Movement. I'd like to bring them forward. I think most of you have probably met Yashika, Sister Yashika, and we will introduce you to Aaron O'Neill, who is her new lawyer.
Good morning, in Uhuru. So as I already stated, my name is Aaron O'Neill. I'm an attorney representing Miss Dashika Clemens, the mother of Dominique Battle, one of the three girls that was murdered by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department in this case. And I'm working as with local counsel, civil rights attorney John Dew in this case. So we want to be clear from the outset that we believe that these girls were murdered. We've seen the slander of these girls. We've seen the lies about the heroic rescue by the police who dove into the muddy water but couldn't get there. But we know in our community already that this doesn't square with the facts of this case. We see that the media and the Sheriff's Department has been working hand in hand to make sure the true, in-depth investigation has not been done in this case. So they've been calling the girls criminals, blaming them for their own deaths. So as a representative of Yashika, I want to say flat out that she's been through so much in these last few weeks. She's truly the hero in this case. She's endured the pain and the heartache of losing a child, and also the other two children who were like children to her. And she's been strong and been fighting for justice, to get justice for Dominique and the other girls. So we're saying enough is enough of the slander and the lies about this case. We want to get to the facts and the truth about what really happened that day. So for one, we want to be clear that we need to stop saying that these girls stole the car. Not only are the facts and circumstances surrounding how they got the car not clear, but this should have been a question for the jury. And the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department took it upon themselves to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner of these girls, even before they were charged with the crime. We also want to deal with this question about whether the police chased the girls or not. And we want to say in 2014, it was the sheriff himself who updated his policy around police chases to say that they were too dangerous and were no longer going to do police chases in that fashion. So the three girls would have been alive today if they followed their own protocols and their own general orders around these police chases. So we say the Sheriff's Department says that they didn't chase the girls through the city, but at one point they were traveling over 90 miles per hour in pursuit of these girls. So we say also, as we talk about Sergeant Skaggs, who has a dubious history to say the least. The Sergeant Skaggs was actually the lead car behind the girls when they went into that dead end and ultimately into the cemetery. And then you could see on the video, they radioed and said, this is only one way in and one way out of the cemetery. But Sergeant Skaggs took it upon himself, along with the other officers, to come into that cemetery and chase those girls through that dark and windy road. So we see clearly that there was a chase that happened. And we do believe, because it's not clear from the video that came out, that we believe that Sergeant Skaggs might have used what's called the pit maneuver. It's a precision immobilization technique that caused those girls to land in that pond. So we find that Sergeant Skaggs, like we said, was involved in another incident that caused the drowning death of another person. And he's also, you can look him up on YouTube, he's also on a program talking about police chases where he used a T-bone method to immobilize a vehicle when bragging about it. So Sergeant Skaggs himself has this dubious history, and we want more facts about him and the other officers in this case. And we also want to talk about the police themselves. They have a duty in the cases of emergency to provide assistance. So they claimed that they went through the water, but it was just too dangerous for the officers to go in. And the three girls laid in that pond for more than 2 hours before anybody came in to get them. Deputy Tromer claims that he actually went into the water. He went 10 to 15 yards into the water, and the car was 20 yards away. But the dive team in their incident report said that it was actually 10 to 15 feet from the shoreline. So there's a difference between what the Deputy Trauma said, that it was 20 yards away, and actually what the dive team who actually went into the water said it was 20 feet away. So we need an investigation around what really happened and how, and what that rescue really looked like.
Yeah.
So also, we can just see clearly from the video that's been circulated that there was no clear urgency to rescue those girls. That, you know, the officers were callous in how they talked about the girls screaming and drowning in this case. And we just really want to bring justice. So those are just a few of the points that we wanted to put out in this case. And there are many more and many discrepancies that we feel that should be further investigated. But we want immediately, we want Bob Gutierrez to be fired and removed from office. We want the officers involved in this case, including Sergeant Skaggs, to be removed from office. We would demand reparations for Yashika Clemens and her family. As I've already said, we demand Black community control of police, because if the community control the police, those 3 girls will be alive today, and also it can also help end this police brutality we see around the country with killings of Black people by the hands of the police. And lastly, just to announce that we will be seeking legal action against anybody responsible and negligent in this case. So I want to thank you, and I want to introduce my client, Ms. Yashika Clemens.
Part of what we want to do here is to say that Dominique was a human being, loved in her community by her mother, and she loved her mother, and we want to show that she's a human face. And what Sister Yashika will do is read to you a letter that was sent to her by Dominique while she was in one of the child prisons that they call juvenile centers, where African young people locked up to as a precursor to the big trip that we find ourselves making all the time. We want you to hear that, and then we want to show you a video as well. Yashika was a caring, loving child who was also loved by her mother, her family, her friends, her neighbors, including the 2 children who died with her. So that is to say, Dominique was that person, and Yashika will share just this letter with you.
This letter is entitled Mom. Mom, I just want to tell you, that I'm ready to give on trial. You never give up on me, even when I give up on myself. But it's time for a change. Enough is enough. I just want to get help because I know I'm not going to be able to stay on track if I do it by myself. But I don't have a problem with doing what I'm supposed to do. I just get thrown easily. It don't have nothing to do with how you raised me. I'm just growing up trying to see where I fit in. You really are a good mom, hardworking. I'm getting trained for the work. You spoiled me and made me into the princess I am today. And I thank you for that, Queen. You don't need to put me first, but sometimes the storm is going to come. God put the heart of those on his children's shoulders. Love you, Mom.
So, and we want to now show you this video of Dominique and her younger brother and sister. Is this, can you see the screen from here? Yeah. So. Also, we wanted to have here on this panel, Pinellas. And frankly, we have her here because she's white. And because being white seems to give a lot of credibility to things where other kinds of evidence won't do. And I want to have Pinellas here because white power is killing us and killing our children, and has done since the beginning. We didn't meet white people in church. It was not a blind date. It was a goose, not who I expected. There is a history to this relationship. And some white people have the ability to be honest about and not to find yourselves defending a foul social system that is responsible for creating mayhem around the world in our communities. We feel like it's necessary to have Pinellas here, so if only so other white people can see her and see that lightning did not strike her for standing here on the right side of the question. And that is an example of the possibilities of white people to act with integrity. It means that as opposed to people being suspicious of the intentions of black people who've only taken care of you since you come into existence, that the suspicion you really should be of white people. And if African people responded to white people based on the history of this relationship, we would either be out with axes and guns doing horrible things or underground all the time because of this relationship. So we're not going to pretend here. That's one of the things we want to do. We want people to have to look at the truth as it really is, as opposed to how it's been painted to be. So I don't know, Penny, just might want to say just a couple of things, because it's really not about Pinellas or white people. It's about those three girls, those three black girls that died. We just know that white people sometimes need to see yourself. That's why you create the Beatles and Elvis Presley and all that stuff like that. It's not good enough to have access to black music coming from black people, so you create your own. So we're going to bring Elvis.
Thank you, Chairman. And I just want to say that my name is Pinellas. I represent the African People's Solidarity Committee, the organization of white people that works under the leadership of the Uhuru movement led by the African People's Socialist Party. We work in the white communities with the understanding that everything that white people have rests on the pedestal of the enslavement of African people, the theft of their labor, their resources, and their lives, and on the oppression of indigenous people and oppressed people around the world. And I think that I just want to say, first of all, that I'm total unity with the very eloquent words of Chairman Omali Shakila, and I want to give our, just our greatest solidarity and unity and support for Yashika Clemens, Ruth Clemens, for her courage, for her integrity, and for her fighting spirit, which is so inspiring. And I want to unite with the fact that this was a hideous crime against these three girls and their families, that not only were they murdered by the sheriff's department, but they were left to die as they were screaming, as they were struggling for help, that they were callously and cynically left to die, that then the girls themselves were slandered and are being slandered every single day, and the families of these girls are slandered. And I want to be really clear that this is no different than the murder of Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, or any other way that the police state, the occupying army, every day attacks and brutalizes and terrorizes the African community with the support of the majority of white people. And that we recognize that what happened to the children that Ms. Clemens represents, her daughter and the other girls who she also calls her daughters, is something that would not happen to white people. Where is an example of that happening to the white community? This was done in a way to be an example of the oppression of African people that they should accept, that they should be criminalized for, and that what happened to them would not happen to white people, that they would not be criminalized in the media. They would not have been pushed into that pond and forced to die in that way. It would have been a totally different thing, and probably Killer Bob would be indicted for that. And I just want to stand in solidarity with demands for reparations to the families, to the African community in general, and that I unite with the struggle for Black community control of police. That makes sense. And I just want to say guru and reparations now.
I want to thank all the presenters here today. We have spoke, Chief Lieutenant Amara Chateau, and his General Counsel Aaron O'Neill. At this time, we're going to open up the floor for questions from the media. Please let us know. Chairman Amara Chateau will answer questions. The chief may not be able to answer some questions, but you can direct the questions also to Attorney Aaron O'Neill. So we're opening up the floor for questions from the media.
Can you outline the legal process from here, what the timetable is, and where the legal action might be filed?
Thank you for the question. I just received the case. We want to do further investigation, so there's no clear-cut timeline right now, but given what I reviewed and the circumstances of the case, we'll be pursuing legal action pretty soon. Thank you.
Aaron, how do you spell your own name?
So it's Aaron, Aaron, last name is O'Neill, O''Neal.
And you are general counsel for the movement out of Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, the Washington, D.C. area. I'm in Maryland, actually. Any other questions?
Any other questions from the media? So they agree with everything we said. I want to thank everyone for coming.
Just be kind enough to spell her name for me, please, mom's name for me, so I have to get it right.
Yashica.
I have a question for Ms. Clemens. First, condolences for the loss of your daughter. I asked the question not to defend you or call me, but something that the sheriff was saying, you probably heard. He feels that with the girls and the parents and guardians, there are some responsibilities for what happened. Do you agree with that?
Well, she's not going to answer that.
I just want to say that council already made a statement that it was reckless and irresponsible to charge them with stealing a car. There was no charge. They've never been charged with anything. They were just killed. And so if you don't charge dead people, they kill them, and they can't speak for themselves. And I would hope that in responding to Ledcock, when he asked you about that, I truly would hope that you would ask him about scams and about the 93 mile per hour on the dash cam, about his characterization of the girls as fleeing, when on the one hand, but on the other hand, him saying they were not chasing them. Who were they fleeing from themselves, a ghost in the cemetery? I mean, it's just ridiculous. And it seems to me that would be, you'd be giggling. You would, have to be giggling when he would make these kind of ridiculous statements. I don't see, so in terms of the family, I want to say something, and the guardians and the children. I inferred something about that when I opened up with my initial statement. That my community is the pride of everything. Everything. That there's no black person in this country that can have a sense of certainty that our child has a future. There's no pride. And that is especially true from black working class people who you never hear from. Only time you hear from black working class people is in a situation like this, when they're being penalized, and then we have to explain ourselves. Most of the black people who you talk to have no relationship to this community. They might have a relationship with white power, but they have no relationship to this community. And so what I'm saying to you, and I heard recently there was a really respectable gentleman who was part of the county government, who said things about how we have to be concerned about, stealing cars, which is a real big thing, and how there has to be greater punishment for people who steal cars. And yes, there are problems of poverty, etc., but it seems to me that the statement coming from that gentleman should have been a self-criticism, in the sense that Yashika has no power. Here's somebody in the county government that has the ability to do something to change the conditions on the ground in our community, to try to make jobs and a future happen, but he doesn't do that. We don't hear from him fighting. We haven't heard a single thing of him putting on wading boots to come in the poverty of our community and say he's here to just try to discover why people are so poor, why people can live in a community and where you can see the downtown skylines and what have you on the one hand, but be impoverished. And then it would seem to me the media would have an interest in asking a question. Is there a value in the police characterizing my community in this fashion as a function of enhancing the ability to gentrify my community, to create situations where police can have full range to do what the hell they want to do, so white guys in pickup trucks and clipboards can ride through and end up buying property that we can't live in and can continue to move? Well, seemingly those are the kinds of questions that really smart journalists like yourselves would be asking and would be pushing them against the wall to respond to. I'm not going to apologize for any black family here. I'm not going to apologize for it. I mean, because people who can manipulate whether or not we eat, whether or not we have a job, whether or not we have a house, whether or not our children will be able to have a decent school, have no right to stand up and then blame us for the consequence of their not making it possible. So that's
the local law office. She's still representing the Knowledge family. Is that everything you want to friends?
I felt it in my best interest that she was not taking this case as seriously as it needed to be taken. That she was lacking in things that I needed to get justice for my daughter. And so I want a higher power. And therefore, the human woman is behind me, and they are my attorneys, my friends, my family, and I stick with it 100%.
What do you foresee possibly the claim to get the potential suit? You file it either wrongful death or?
We're going to explore all the options, but the clear is probably wrongful death. But as I said, I just took the case. We're going to explore all possibilities, and we're going to see who's culpable, and we're going to go from there.
Are you proceeding both the sheriff's office and Sheriff Paul both as an?
Well, as I said before, we'll look into that, but obviously, these are some of the people that are working there.
Is he aware that he filed with a local suit, circuit court suit or a federal claim to pay that?
Well, we'll explore those options once we decide how we move. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the meeting?
Sure. I'd just like to thank you for coming out. And again, we expect a relentless struggle here, an international campaign, and we are serious that these children will be vindicated. And our community will be vindicated because we know that to kill black children because they're from the black community, it's not just, they didn't know their names when they killed them, they just knew they were black people. And there's open season, obviously, on African people, and especially our young people. So this is going to be a relentless campaign, and the sky's the limit. And so it'll be fought in the courts, and it'll be fought in the streets, everywhere it's possible to wage this struggle. We're going to wage it, and we're going to call on everybody who can respond to support us to do that. We will be building committees to defend these girls everywhere. We already organizing in places as far away as Sweden and the United Kingdom, in the Bahamas. Already we are doing that, and throughout this country. So we expect a major campaign. And as I said, we'll see how long this campaign lasts. If it goes into another fall, we'll see what the tourist industry is going to look like by that time. Our objective is the sky's the limit, and these children are going to be vindicated. And this family, these families are going to experience some kind of closure, some kind of meaningful relief. This child, these children are just going to be seen as dead meat. Kill them and then just leave them there. Leave them in the water for that length of time. Leave Mike Brown on sweltering August heat for 4.5 hours. It's not going to happen this way. We're going to make this campaign. And believe me when I tell you that it's a very serious campaign. So I just want to say that. And the features of the campaign continues to unfold even as we have this discussion. But that we're tired of it. Black people are tired of it.
Yes.
Black young people who are under the hammer all the time of something that you call law enforcement, but it's nothing but an occupying military colonial force. Now we're tired of it.
Yes.
It's over.
Yes.
And so, you know, my advice to people in the county commissioner and people in the government was unload Gutierrez, meet the demands of this community because we intend to make this struggle. We intend to make this struggle. So I want to thank you so much, and you've been quite patient with me. You've listened, and you've not indicated any intentions of violence or anything like that, and I really appreciate it. And you'll be hearing more from the campaign as we move forward. And I want to thank Council Aaron O'Neill, Attorney Aaron O'Neill, and of course, I'm calling on my community to fully embrace Sister Yashika Clemens and the mothers of these other 3 children who've been murdered and slandered. I'm calling on the community to embrace them. And of course, one of the best ways we embrace them is to participate in the movement to vindicate them. Participate in building a movement to vindicate them. Thank you so much for coming out.
We want to bring the press conference to a close. I know some of the media has to do interviews after. We will be available briefly for interviews after the press conference close. Thank you for coming.